Take three.
His signature sign-on. This is your musical host who loves you the most. Is as timeless as his news intro. And now, old Midnight Sun, don't run before we pay our musical dues. We want to take you on a 5-minute cruise through the world's latest news. This is DJ Holmes, a.k.a. Daddy-O Daily. We'll talk about him in a little bit as we get into this week's album. Cue the music. All right. Matt, I wanted to start that off because the song selection made me wonder, where did the songs come from? Who's on this album? And that all collided together. So this week's episode is nothing else but Something Else. And that is going to be Something Else by Cannonball Adderley. It features Miles Davis, Hank Jones, Sam Jones, and Art Blakey. And this is number 36 on our countdown to number 1. I'll tell you why I chose those quotes from Daddy-O in a little bit, but as you know, it's one of the songs on this album.
Well, and it's pretty. It ties right in because we're missing Daddy-O tonight because he's feeling ill. He's unable to join us tonight. So that's a beautiful intro.
He did send us an email with his music selection and a couple of quotes, so we'll mention those along the way. What we're going to talk about tonight is going to include our week in music or just in life, because it's important to our listening, our rating. Music clips, we're going to play a few of those, some information slides that Matt has put together, our review of the album, and our rating. Now, this includes some quotes, some laughs, and a whole bunch of lack of our knowledge along the way. So stay tuned as we talk about Cannonball Adderley, Something Else.
Well, we are the unconnoisseurs, so we still don't know what we don't know.
Right? Right? I'm still waiting to learn. It's all new to me.
That's right.
It's all new. Tell me about your week.
I'm going to do that. So we actually had a great week in music. Wednesday night last week was the Three Rivers Big Band. So Kendra and I and Delaney and Grace all kind of hung out, waited for Dad to get there. We were listening to just great big band jazz music. I love going there every month just to hang out and have some fun and hear them play. You know, Dad, he was there. He kind of showed up late. He wasn't really feeling well last week either, so he did leave kind of early. We did get a couple of rounds of sevens in, though, while we were listening to the music. But here's what strikes me the most. Because Lady D was sitting at the table with us, during the break, the musicians would come over and talk to Lady D. And so I would get my little comments in every once in a while. Yeah, Al Parr, he's the trumpet player. He's one of the screaming ones that he can solo. He can scream and wail, and he's just tight and crisp. He came over to talk to Lady D, and he and I have a lot in common anyways. He was in the Air Force, and he was a bugler in the Air Force, and I was a bugler in the Army. So we have a lot in common anyways, and I've talked to him before. But anyways, that and having Cannonball in my ear this week, which it was not hard. I really can't wait to talk about our rating and how this album affected me personally. But yeah, that was my week, having Cannonball and all of the other Cannonball stuff that I did and his brother Nat Adderley. Whoo, boy, oh boy. So I got a list to read later of the albums that I listened to.
I know you do. And I had a bunch written down in my book as well. It was just so enjoyable to put Cannonball in the ears. Last week we wrapped up the episode where we almost judged the album by who it was. We were expecting a very different album, and I kept going back to the fact that I'd forgotten he was part of the First Great Quintet, which actually was a sextet because he had joined Miles Davis. Mm-hmm. And so all this information we're going to get into just blew my mind this week listening to the album. And of course, when we first did it, it was a very new introduction. And man, I'm going to tell you, it was so good hearing him play. He has got a style about him, and we'll hear it in some of the music clips, I'm sure. He's got a very unique style on this. So it's just Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
My week in music has been a lot of the same. It's the normal dust that I'm collecting week after week, day after day. Of course, I'm getting ready to jump off and slimline my jobs down a little bit. So kind of ramping up one business and stepping away from the other. I'm having an opportunity to do a lot of fun things. And mentally, I'm preparing for June 15th through the 20th at the Texas Jazz and Blues Camp coming up. I'll be spending a week. I wish you were on screen so that everybody could see you laughing over there. It'll be a fun time. Of course, my mind is going to the video part of it, which photos, how do I get the audio correct this year? But I'm super excited because it's going to be a great time. We've got some great musicians lined up that will be teaching the courses. And that is most of my week. Until
can you give any names away of some of the instructors?
Yes, I can, absolutely, and it's on the TexasJazzandBlues.com website. You'll find that, of course, Joe Morales, a staple here in Austin, acclaimed and Grammy plaque winning saxophonist. He's going to be there. We've got Don Braden coming in for that week. He will be leaving after that week for his Litchfield camp, which is a super great time. We're going to have Andre Hayward back in the house. We're going to have Bill Evans, the saxophone player, as one of the big instructors. Jay Tillman is going to be here on piano. We'll have Paul Deemer. So many people.
Bunch of great names.
Yeah. I don't exactly know if some of the big names will be back. Chris McQueen from Snarky Puppy was here teaching last year, taught the year before, so I think he'll be back in the house as well. It's just going to be an all-star lineup of master classes and instruction. These students will be learning how to improvise. They'll be learning how to play a little bit better their instruments, but the camp is designed on 2 years or more of playing experience so that you're not in the deep end as soon as you come in with some of these pros. So thanks for asking, we were doing a fundraiser this weekend at the Longtime Austin, which is a local baseball club. It was a great day of baseball, and it reminded us of Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. Jack and his team out there have put together 5 years ago a field where baseball can be played. These amateurs come from all over the place, and it's a big, big deal. They were hosting a fundraiser for the New School of Music Austin, and a lot of those proceeds will go directly to the summer camp scholarships. The scholarships are based, they want to do 50% scholarship and 50% paid, giving underserved youth an opportunity to learn jazz music. That's what Texas Jazz and Blues is. That's what the New School of Music is. And so this fundraiser was a great opportunity for us to go out and play. I played, out of the 40-minute set, I played half the songs, and then I had to grab my camera, man. It just drove me crazy. I wanted to capture these kids at the baseball field. It was such a great time. And that reminds me, this quote from Art Blakey as I wrap up my time. Jazz washes the dust off of everyday life. And it sure did, being able to play on Saturday with these students, and it was just a great time. So thanks, Dad, for that quote from Art Blakey. There.
Wow. What a perfect way to wrap up the weekend music.
Thanks for letting me plug Texas Jazz and Blues Camp.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no question. Absolutely. Man, I'm so excited for you. That sounds like just a great week that you had. Yeah. So being able to play jazz, that is awesome.
I'm playing it and learning to listen to it. So I'm new to jazz, period. And it just continues to, for both of us, it's a great opportunity to explore some great music.
Yep,
the
absolutely.
Art of jazz.
Well, speaking of music, what do you say we put a clip or two in?
I think that's a great timing for that. Because we did get the heads up from Daddy-O, not the Daddy-O Daily, but from Daddy-O.
He wants to hear Bangoon, Bangoon, and he was thinking between 3 minutes and 45 seconds and 4 minutes and 45 seconds.
I can imagine. The whole time I was like, oh, yeah, I know why he's going to pick this song at that point in time.
Yep.
Oh, man. So what did he have to say about that clip?
Well, he didn't really specifically say much about the clip, but what he did say was that each of the pieces, each of the musicians blends well together in that particular section. And I will agree with him. There's, sometimes when you listen to an album, there's superstars on the album, and then that's all you concentrate on. But this whole album, they're all superstars. So they blend well together. They mix well together. They all let each other give their sermon, do their thing, do their solo. And that piece by Art right there, I mean, it just goes to show, they let art just be highlighted. It's just beautiful. It's just beautiful.
It is. It's interesting though, because I read this and then I listened to the album. I've had the album in my ears 3 times today. I just couldn't get enough. And what I was reminded of is that the Art Blakey we know from Jazz Messengers never got to really do his thing on this album. That radical sound, the drumming that I think of with Jazz Messengers from that time period, this time period of all time periods, which is more amazing to me than anything. Mm-hmm. I didn't get to hear him really spread his wings a whole lot, but nobody really did. They all just made one brilliant album, and it wasn't a forceful, it wasn't a, I'm going to dominate, and so I agree with that. It all blended so very well. But I'm reminded, Dad's becoming a drummer, so I can understand his appreciation of starting it with the drum solo of Art Blakey.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Which now makes sense why he wanted to include that. Jazz washes away the dust of everyday life, quote from Art Blakey. So
well, and now we don't know whether to call him Art or whether to call him
he's got a long way to go.
He's got a long way to go. Okay.
I'll still refer to him as Ron. Always sitting back waiting.
Okay.
He's going to wait to speak when it's appropriate, and when he does, you better stink and listen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we were. Side note: Lily and I were driving home tonight. And there was a couple of crashes out in front of the high school, and so we started talking about what's your safe way to exit here. And she said, "Well, she looked, and I said, would you rather come out and turn right, or try to cut across 6 lanes of traffic?" She said, "I'd turn right." And I said, my dad used to do that, and it would tick me off. He would take the long way around, so he could always take right-hand corners. And she said, "I remember you telling me stories about that." Mm-hmm. It makes sense, though, doesn't it?
It does.
Go out of a place where you could take a right-hand turn. We've learned from experience from Pizza King, don't ever try to turn left across 4 lanes of traffic. We just know that. It's instinctual to us now. Turn right, do a U-turn later.
Well, and okay, I love the fact that it's instinctual, because that's how I feel about Cannonball. When I hear Cannonball play, and we've talked about it before. We've talked about it with Winton on Winton Week, how it's just natural for him. It's not even second nature for him, and that's kind of the same way I feel. And I did a lot of different decades for Cannonball.
Okay.
The 3 decades that he played. So I can kind of hear that progression and where. But for me in '58, Cannonball, I hate to say he was at his peak, but because he wasn't. But man, he is nearing the mountaintop of his sound.
Yeah.
So, and it's just instinctual for him. He just does it. He just does it. He just does it.
Doesn't even think about it. Just does it.
No.
So let's jump over to your track.
Okay. All right. Cool. Well, I'm gonna highlight Cannonball a little bit in my clip. I want Autumn Leaves. Excuse me. Starting at 1 minute and 58 seconds. That's the end of Miles' solo, right where Cannonball comes in at until 2.5 minutes into the song.
All right. Here we go.
It dang near brings me to tears. It dang near does.
Yep.
I mean, no joke.
Yep.
That particular section right there, especially, I know it's the opening track on the album, but the more you listen to it, the more you realize how he is in his element. You know, I'm thinking where they're standing in the studio. He's probably standing somewhere close to Miles, and him and Miles have played together before. It's not like it's his first time playing with Miles, but you're standing next to Miles Davis, a giant in the industry, and you've got to stand and look him in the eye and be at that same level. And Cannonball he just does it.
Yeah. Just like breathing.
Just breathing.
Does it.
So, I just love that clip so much.
It's interesting how you say it almost makes you cry.
Yeah.
When you listen to him play with the passion, it's almost like that listening to Love Supreme with Coltrane. For me, it's like listening to Strasbourg Saint Denis with Roy Hargrove. There's so many things that you start to feel. Clark Terry's playing. When you feel that raw emotion, it kind of makes you, it'll tear you up, baby. It'll tear you up.
And I hate to say this early in the episode, but for me, you know, we haven't heard any of Charlie Parker yet on our journey. We haven't run across in 36 weeks Charlie Parker, and I know we're going to get. I hope we're going to get there, and I know we will. But for me, Cannonball, never mind. I'm not going to say it.
We don't know what Parker does, but I almost think that this is not necessarily that hard bop sound either. These guys have strung together some beautiful music, very melodic, very structured stuff, and I don't know. Is he as good as Parker?
If you ask my opinion, he's right up there.
I'm going to ask your opinion.
Yes.
Charlie Parker is not as good as Cannonball Adderley. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. That's exactly what I'm saying. And I'm an unconnoisseur.
And I'm gonna put that on the title of the program.
Matt says Cannonball's better than Bird.
Oh man, I can't wait to see the negative comments roll on that one, baby.
Hey, bring it on, because I'm an unconnoisseur.
Oh man, that's awesome. So Autumn Leaves, that was something that I noted in there, is that I need to learn Miles' solo at about 4 minutes in. It's probably the second time he starts to solo on it. He does some beautiful things in there, and I'm like, you know what? I will continue to come back to this album.
Yeah.
It strikes me as odd that as few times as Miles served as a sideman, he serves as a sideman on Cannonball Adderley's album. I mean, what does that tell you prior? Now, this is the first great quintet. A lot of these names were familiar. He hasn't played with Wayne Shorter yet either. So I'm just thinking, man, these dudes were tight. Imagine playing with somebody that comfortably, where you just look at him and smile and say, "I got your melody right here. Let me throw something down."
Hold my beer.
Right?
Hold my beer. It's my turn to solo.
And they do it so flawlessly on a standard that has been played a billion times over.
It's a Johnny Mercer tune. So, like you said, it's one of those standards where people know it. So you better do it right.
You better. So the track that I want to listen to is something that hasn't been played a lot, and I wanted to go to the song "One for Daddy-O." The reason for this is the week that we first did Cannonball, I have a big note in here. You better check out his brother, Nat. Nat Adderley, the great trumpet player. Nat sat in after Clifford Brown passed away in the car crash with the Max Roach. He replaced him. So who the heck is Nat Adderley then? So when you start to really look into it, and then of course this was written by Nat Adderley, being performed by Cannonball Adderley and Miles Davis. What kind of tip of the hat is this? But I want to listen to Cannonball's solo.
Okay.
So I'm going to start that at 25 seconds in. I'll go for just about a minute. This song is where my intro came from. DJ Holmes, Daddy-O Daily, was a radio show host out of Chicago. So this was actually written in honor of Daddy-O. So 1 for Daddy-O, 25 seconds. I lied, I'm going to do the melody first. I wish I better understood exactly what he was doing there, because the sounds that were coming out of that were just so stinking amazing.
I was going to beg you not to turn it off.
I would have left it going, but I have one more thing in mind with this track.
And I know exactly what you're going to do.
So here we go. This is going to be at the end of the...
Is that what you wanted, Alfred?
You knew I was going to go there, didn't you?
I knew you would, yes.
That just cracks me up. Of course, that's a tip of the hat to the producer, Alfred Lyon, and that's Miles Davis. True and true. Is that what you want, Alfred? And every time I heard that, I just started laughing because we laughed so much at it.
Yeah.
It's the raw emotion sitting in the studio that day.
Well, and it's typical Miles, you know. You made me do it 11 times. Is that the one you want?
Miles wouldn't have done it over and over, but if it's Cannonball, he would have.
Well, that's what. Yeah, because that's one of the quotes that's in the Penguin Guide to Jazz, is that because it was Cannonball's album, that it had to be perfect. If it would have been a Miles Davis album, not
Would
quite
have
so
been over
perfect.
with. Yep.
Now, you've mentioned brothers a couple of times already in the episode. So I already did my deep dive this week. And one of the things that I looked up was how many other brothers in jazz music was there?
Ooh, do
So-
tell.
Let me give you a short list. Okay, so you got Tommy and Jimmy Dorsey. They were brothers. Now, another brother on this album, you got Thad, Hank, and Elvin Jones.
Yep.
Hank Jones, and they played together as well, the Jones brothers. You got Nat and Freddie Cole. Now, I didn't listen to any Nat or Freddie Cole music this week, but I intend to anyways put some of their brother music on. Now, a pretty easy one, Michael and Randy Brecker. Okay, the Brecker brothers. Then, of course, you've got the quartet of the Marsalis brothers.
Of course, you've got four brothers in that one. Winton on trumpet, Branford on saxophones, Delfio on trombone, and Jason on drums.
Wayne and Alan Shorter.
Yep.
I don't know how much Wayne and Alan played together, but they're both jazz musicians. Then, of course, the final one that I found, Pat and Mike Metheny. Mike is a flugelhorn player. He's got a couple albums out that I actually own. So, brothers in jazz.
This is even more bizarre because the guy that I'd been drooling on this week, the trumpet player, Conte Condoli, and his brother, Pete Condoli, two trumpet players side by side.
Okay.
And then you can never underestimate the trio, the Montgomery
Yes,
three brothers.
yes.
So you had, it seems like if you're from a music family, you're going to wind up playing similarly because you were brought up just like we were, Matt. I mean, our scores have reflected this. Our backgrounds have reflected this. We came from similar places, and we've done many things in our years after that, but we're all back into the music. So,
Well, and I can think of one more great brother duo in jazz history. Are you ready? It's Drew and Matt Rice of the Unconnoisseurs.
that's awesome. We are going to have to get the long grains going. Dad on drums or percussion,
That's right.
Laney,
Yep.
Lady D, and maybe Phil rust out some of his music. But the nephews play music as well, so rocking it. That is so awesome.
It's funny. All right. Are you ready for a slideshow?
Let's do this.
Let's do the slideshow. So the very first slide in our slideshow, just like we do every week, whatever you do, do it to jazz. We let jazz music brush the dust off of us all week long, because I know there's some times when I get dusty and just get in a rut and I just need some good music. This week, of course, we are talking about Cannonball Adderley, and the album is Something Else. Move to the next slide. You know, this is a typical Blue Note label.
Yeah.
You don't even really have to know that it's from Blue Note to know that it's a Blue Note label. Very plain, very striking. Plain's the wrong
Stands
word. Stands out. I love the colors of the letters. You know, Cannonball, he's in this green color, and then the rest are in blue. I don't know. I dig the cover.
I love it.
the cover. Yeah, I do too. All right, let's move on to the photo slide. Man, I picked some really cool photos this week. That up photo of that's Cannonball. I mean, that's not the one that's in the magazine, but it
very similar.
Very, very similar. When you think about Cannonball, this is who I think of, that quintessential photo of him. And this is one of the press photos that they did. The one on the right-hand side on the top, that's some artwork done by Warren Goodson. You don't need to, you can definitely see that it's Cannonball.
Yeah.
For sure. So, and then the one on the bottom left, that's AmericanMusicPioneers.com. They do all kinds of different musicians like that. Cannonball's kind of got a strange look on his face, if you ask me, but I don't know. Maybe he was being funny that day when they drew the picture. I don't know. But yeah, the AmericanMusicPioneers.com. Thanks for that artwork. It's fun. He looks good. You can totally tell it's Cannonball. Then the bottom right picture. I mean, come on, you're gonna play with Miles. You're gonna get a picture taken with Miles.
Mm-hmm.
Miles in that picture. Cannonball's in the back there, waiting. Looks like he's maybe waiting his turn to play. I don't know. I didn't know who the other cat was. That's not Coltrane,
John
is it?
Coltrane.
All right.
Yep. I went ahead and looked at that earlier. I wanted to make sure I knew who it was. That is the Coltrane, John Coltrane.
The jazz lingo for the day. I picked a new website to get the lingo from.
Moldy Fig.
Pig. During the pop era, fans and players of the new music used the term to describe fans and players of the earlier New Orleans jazz. What do you expect, man? Oh, Eddie is a moldy fig, and he'll never dig the new sounds.
Dude, I can't agree more with that, right?
I know, right?
Every generation of this art form, they were old moldy figs. That New Orleans stuff, they're never going to get rid of that. They're moldy figs. Let's move into the new stuff. And that's Miles Davis, always moving forward. And the conversations we've had over the years about the straight jazz movement that Wynton has really pushed, or according to many, he's really pushed that, eliminating free jazz, eliminating fusion jazz, eliminating third stream jazz, but the reality is every art form is appreciated for what it is, and you can't challenge that. You got to learn from it. Right. What are the best art forms of jazz music out there? The ones that move you, baby.
Yep, favorite.
Yep. Not everybody's going to like everything.
No, but you're going to find something that you do like. I can promise you that. And this week I found something that I like really, really well. So, okay, so let's move on to the next slide where you can get it. This week's album can be found on iTunes, Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube Music, LP, and CD. And I did do my due diligence to Discogs. They do have the CDs available. I just did not purchase one this week. Quote by Cannonball at the bottom of that slide: "There's no future without the past, and anybody who doesn't really understand where jazz has come from has no right to try to direct where it's going.
Did you do that intentionally?
Mm-hmm.
Have your last quote or last word of the day go right into that, because that is. Look at you. Look at the brain on Brad.
Yeah,
That's cool, dude. That is cool.
seriously. I've got no right to direct where jazz is going. I mean, I'm still an unconnoisseur. We're still building our foundation and getting into the music itself. So there's no future without the past. And Miles, he was able to kind of predict the future, in my opinion. He didn't do it on this album, but okay, yeah.
Well, he didn't do it on this album because he was in the middle of that hot time period. This was his hard bop time period. It will progress in a few years from this, but and I want to read this because it was important to me. We've talked a lot about the album, but we forget that inside the album is a lot of great information.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Miles was quoted in the original liner notes as he recounted, "All my inspiration today comes from Ahmad Jamal, the Chicago pianist. I got the idea for this treatment of Autumn Leaves from him. He's taken this inspiration from other people as well, and he did that every decade or so, pulling inspiration from someone else. I wonder this, what would the album have sounded like if Miles and Jimi Hendrix played together?" They were originally going to try to do that before the passing of one of them. What kind of album would that have been?
I read though that when they actually practiced or played together on an occasion, but Miles couldn't stand the fact that Jimmy couldn't read music.
Oh, you can't walk in with a chord chart, throw it down, and expect him to play.
And Jimmy to play because he can't read music and he has no idea what you're talking about chord chart. If you tell him to play an F, he's like, what the F is that? So
Okay, so it wouldn't have been very good. I also wonder if direct leaders, if they would have worked it out on stage.
I'm sure they would have, but Miles he just didn't like it.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
all right. Move on to the next slide. This timeline slide. I love this new slide. So, Cannonball was born in 1928, and in the 40s, Cannonball and Nat both played with Ray Charles. And they had a 5 or 6 year stint with Ray Charles. So it wasn't just a one and done kind of thing. They played with Ray Charles when they were 16, 17, 18, 19 years old. So, what a great way to get your start and get your feet under you anyways, playing with the great Ray Charles. In 1950, Cannonball was drafted into the Army, and coming up on the information slide next, I'll go into a little bit of that, but he was drafted in 1950. Of course, 1958 is the year this album is recorded, and 57, 58, 59, you and I talk about it all the time, being kind of the golden era, at least my golden era, of jazz albums that just hit incredibly hard. So this album's right in that golden era.
Yes, it is.
1975 is when Cannonball passed away. So,
man,
yeah. I changed this slide just a little bit. I flipped the colors. You got a black background this week. I don't know if you're going to leave it that way or not. If you do,
flipped it to white.
Okay, perfect. You didn't like it, but of course. Some of Cannonball's influences, and I'm sure that you may have found another, but his mom and dad were huge influences on him. They were music teachers, music educators, anyways. I think his dad was the one that taught at a university, yes. And mom was a school teacher in high school or middle school, if I remember correctly. So his mom and dad were huge influences on his musical career, him and Nat both. I came across that he was really influenced by Count Basie, Duke Ellington, and Charlie Parker. Now, of course, having Parker as your influence, you're gonna pick up some of his stuff and learn to play his licks or his riffs or whatever. But man, I think for me, Cannonball just takes it to the next level and I agree. He's the next level bird. Did you find any other influences?
No, I didn't. I had just those.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's move on to the discography. I counted 56 studio albums, 34 as a sideman, and 11 compilation albums. So he's got just an entire huge discography to put in your ears. And I know you and I both love Something Else, and I've probably listened to it like you 3 times just today. But man, when you start stepping out and listening to some of his other stuff,
Oh yeah.
yeah, for sure. Okay, so the genre that I listed, was jazz, hard bop, and he did play modal jazz, of course, on a few other albums with Miles, and then jazz fusion, because in his later years he really started to ramp up that fusion kind of funk jazz, 60s and 70s funk jazz. So yeah. Anyways, here's a few more facts about Cannonball. He was born Julian Edwin Adderley was his birth name, and he was the Dillard High School band director in Dillard, Florida. Again, he got drafted into the military, and he was the leader of the 36th Army Dance Band. Heck yeah, man. I can't imagine being a member of that band and saying, oh, hey, Cannonball, man, let's go play. Let's go play for the troops or something. Oh, man. Can you just imagine? Oh,
Right?
I played with some great musicians. I had great band leaders when I was in the military. I just can't imagine having Cannonball Adderley as my band director.
Leader. Right.
Dance band. So that one made me proud. He's an Army musician, and I'm an Army musician. That's why it mattered to me. He did play a lot with his brother Nat, and we did talk about that brotherly connection and some other brothers in jazz. Unfortunately, Cannonball passed away in Gary, Indiana.
Gary, Indiana.
Yeah. So, he passed away in Indiana. And as a matter of fact, Gary is where Michael Jackson is from. So,
Nice history.
maybe Cannonball gave, his spirit left and jumped into Michael.
Maybe. Playing with Ray Charles, and then all of a sudden you got that flair on stage. MJ, baby.
That's right. In 1975, Cannonball did win the Downbeat Jazz Hall of Fame Award. I didn't really find too many other awards that he had won. If you've got some in mind that you can think of, lay them down to me now. Nope. Okay, cool. Let's move on to the album itself. Something Else is the album. Now, Something Else is the only album that Cannonball did for Blue Note, if you can believe that, which I can, because his style fits so well with the Blue Note label. For me, I don't know. It was a surprising fact for me. That's why I kind of put it up there.
Oh, yeah.
But this is one of the few albums, and you did mention this at the beginning of the episode, one of the few albums when Miles was made a sideman after 1955. Now, Miles did a lot of work with other musicians as a side, but up until 1955, he didn't want. After 1955, he didn't want to be a sideman anymore and wanted to be the leader and this, that, and the other. But this is the one album after 1955 where Miles is on side. Cannonball did not write any of the tunes, and we mentioned that earlier too. That even his brother Nat wrote some tunes for him on this. All 5-star review from the critics, and there's not going to get a different review from me tonight. So 5-star review from the critics for Something Else. 6 Degrees is real easy because Miles is on this album, so it's Cannonball and Miles, 1 degree of separation. Boom, done.
Nice.
Cool. Let's move on.
And I was going to say, and Miles is on this album, so if you need to know how that degree works, right here.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's right there. It's right there. If you haven't listened to the album, man, please go put the album in your ears, because if you're a Miles Davis fan, even if you're not a Miles Davis fan, put the album in your ears.
This is a side of Miles that I had forgotten about with that first great quintet, is this bop sound coming out of his horn, probably less mute than you hear on most of his other albums, and just straight playing. He did that early harmonizing of things in his head, which is what I loved about his solo in Autumn Leaves, but he didn't push the buttons.
Right.
He wasn't trying to go miles on this. He is that what you want, Alfred? He kind of did that.
Well, I think Cannonball had a lot to do with that too, kind of reining him back in, saying, "Hey, look, man, we can fly all day long on your album, but this is my album.
Yep.
We're gonna do it my way."
And like you said in the information slide, it was the only one for Cannonball on Blue Note.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's make an impression. Let's do what we do best.
Right.
Let's play.
Okay, let's move on to the couple final slides I got. Today in jazz history, this episode drops on April the 23rd, so tax day is already over for us coming tomorrow. Abbey Lincoln records Over the Years in the year 2000. So we have covered Abbey at least once on our episodes, and I still listen to Abbey Lincoln when I get a chance.
Yep.
Excuse me. Lil Brown records Why Don't You Do Right, and it became a hit later when Benny Goodman's band did it in 1941. So Lil Brown recorded it, but it didn't become a hit until Benny Goodman's band did it in 41. And one final quote I got by Cannonball on the bottom of that slide: "Understanding is the least important thing when it comes to digging jazz. Like anything else, jazz is a form of entertainment. It is created to be enjoyed, not understood like you read a blueprint." Sometimes I think, even me, as an unconnoisseur, I try and dig into it so much to figure out what they're doing or why they did it this way or who's playing and how it all fits together that I forget. Man, it's music. They're doing it because they love it. They're doing it because it's fun. It's an art form. We've said it from the very beginning when we started. When we started, that we're not here to criticize the albums. We're just learning how to listen to the albums and how to enjoy the music. So I know that we can be critical at times. We kind of laugh at Miles when he flubs a note, or we don't like the way a certain musician sounds or the tone or timbre of their instrument. But that's like saying you don't like the Mona Lisa smile. I don't know. I'm rambling, but that's how I feel. So enjoy the music. Enjoy it for what it is, for what it's worth.
Well, and it's interesting because as someone trying to learn to improvise, as you sit back and listen to the music, as you start really trying to figure this out, it's created to be enjoyed, not understood or read like a blueprint. One of the things that I would love more than anything is just write the piece out for me to play. I'd love that. Let me memorize it. Let me get comfortable with it. But that's not improv. That's not jazz. And so I have a hard time throwing away the theory just to feel it.
Right.
But when you feel it, there's nothing like it. And so it's created to be enjoyed. It's also being created to enjoy that moment. So that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, for sure.
And
all right.
By the way, today is the 14th as we record this. It'll come out on the 23rd. Tomorrow, speaking about brothers in music, happy birthday, Phil. 4/15 is your birthday. That means, if I'm not mistaken, you're old as dust now.
Oh, man.
What's new, Matt?
Yeah, let me tell you what's new. You sent me this earlier this week, and I got to tell you, after two times through it in my ears, I couldn't get enough. So here's what's new. Emma
Rovich
and Gwendolyn Simcock. The album is called Big Visit. Now, I put Giants on there, but this is a jazz duo from two giants. This album comes from the Act label. The compositions, in my opinion, this is all my opinion, are advanced but very fun. And this is their first project together, but Emma said in an interview that this will not be their last.
Right.
And this was released last month in 2025. So it's a beautiful album. Absolutely beautiful. And listening to it for the first time and enjoying it, and then going back later that same day and listening to it again because it was just stuck. It was stuck in my head that it was so beautiful. I wanted to hear it again.
Feeling and emotion listening to that album, there was a host of piano players in the back of my head. There was a host of tenor sax players in my head. As a father to a tenor sax, now alto, female, I love the fact that there are young female sax artists that Lily could emulate or watch from. But listening to Emma play, it reminds me a lot of Wayne Shorter.
Well,
go ahead.
yeah. No, I was going to say, and Gwendolyn reminds me a lot of Keith Jarrett.
The Cone concert to me was the feeling that I got listening. But then I went to a classically trained guy, Brad. And I was thinking Brad Muldow in the back of my head, but I kept going back to Keith Jarrett. And I kept thinking, who else plays tenor like that? And it's Wayne. There's something so, it's in my mind, Allegria from Wayne, and the Cone concert from Keith, and you sandwich those together with just two instruments, and that's this album. And that's just my take on it, and that's why I said to you, this is an album that I'm all about. So
yeah. Well, it was a great pick. Thanks for recommending that for the What's New slide. Hey, that's the slideshow for me. Thanks for letting me do it. Let's dialogue a little bit more about something else, though. Not about something else, but about something,
about something else. So, in honor of Dad not being here, I got to do it. I got to do it.
Okay.
Just maybe I got to do it. We're going to Dancing in the Dark. He wanted to hear Dancing in the Dark starting about, what did he say, 3:10?
Yeah.
Pretty much through the end of it. So, Dad, feel better soon. There you go. That
His control, his tone, his voice, everything to me. This is a perfect album.
Yeah.
To me, it is.
It really is, and that's it's interesting because we've hit these milestones throughout the 64 albums that we've listened to. 64, yeah. Throughout this process, there have been things like Wynton's album. There's been so many things where I go, oh man, that's this music. That's what jazz is all about. And that was this album.
Well,
so that's what it is.
Because I didn't know what to expect. Because I thought Cannonball was some far left, free jazz artist, and I didn't. And what I got was a soft pillow to lay my head down and just, warm blanket all week long. So that's what blew me out of the water more than anything with Cannonball. Is my expectations were low, but what I got was way higher. I mean, come on. He's got Art Blakey on the album.
Right? Well, and that's the interesting thing. You've got Art, Miles, Cannonball. All who have been in Jazz Messengers. And I put a note in here, Sam Jones as well. On that bass guitar, that man had played with everybody. These were seasoned pros who just breathed jazz music. This was that simple for them to sit down and do this.
Sam, what I found though? Before you go on about Sam, here's what I found. There was, I hate to say it, but I wasn't really paying attention for the bass. There's a few pieces where he just really shines. he just really comes through, and you can hear him lay that down so beautifully, lay his part down and just be there, the rock solid, along with Art, laying that rhythm down. But it's not in your face.
Nope.
Here I am all the time. He's that Ron Carter. He's that dad on our episode that drops nuggets when he needs to.
And that was interesting because a couple of the songs, all of a sudden you're listening, you go, man, that bass is walking all over the place. You're looking for where it's coming, and then it just goes right back in to the back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, where'd he go? He came out, he made his point, and he disappeared into the back row again. It was like, wow.
Yeah.
Sam Jones played with everybody, and I put this, including Kenny Durham. So I laugh because I think about Kenny Durham when the jazz magazines talk about an underrated musician. They put a picture of Kenny Durham in there.
Yeah.
That man was a genius too, no doubt about it. But
No doubt.
so you got Sam Jones on bass, you got Hank Jones on piano, Miles Davis trumpet, Art Blakey on drums, and you got to who else was on this album or what other albums that they did. They may not have done other albums together, except for they all played in the First Great Quintet. And so, and they didn't all play, but that was Coltrane and Rollins first, Red Garland, Paul Chambers, Philly Joe Jones, Miles, and Cannonball. These guys were playing together from 55 through 58. And then this album comes out as Cannonballs. Just phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my thoughts on the albums. Just wowzer.
Just wow.
I'm pretty much done with wowzer.
So in 99, Cannonball made the list with a different album, Mercy, Mercy, Mercy. And that landed at number 80 in the 99 list. In the 06 list, Something Else was number 38. And then on our list for 2022 from Jazzwise Magazine, the top 100 albums that shook the world, number 36. So he jumped up 2 more spots. Now, for me, again, it's not my list, but for me, this album should have been in the top 10.
Yeah.
For me.
Yep, I agree.
I'm glad it wasn't because we got to enjoy it for 36 weeks.
Yep.
Before we reach
doubt.
number 1. But man, if the next 35 are as good as this, we're in for a treat.
Right?
We're in for a treat.
We are.
So let me ask you, did it shake your world?
Shook it up. Yep. Set a standard for what could be done. But
Yeah.
58's starting to do that to us. I mean, every episode that we talk, that 57, 8, 59, that time period, that music is just, something resonates with us about it.
Yeah.
And so it's shaking us up on that.
Yeah,
You?
for sure. Definitely. It meets all the criteria, all of the criteria, craftsmanship, because it's a Cannonball album. There's no Miles's flubs. There's no, over the top drums. There's no,
Nope.
the craftsmanship is there for me. The awareness of all of the musicians. Like I said, I could picture myself looking in on the studio, seeing where Cannonball is, seeing where Miles is at, and how they're communicating on together.
Right?
The creativity is there. It's beautiful. It's just the spirit of the album. The spirit to me is that Sunday morning
absolutely.
breakfast, and you don't care how long it takes because you got 44 minutes to get breakfast made before the album is over.
Right.
That's the spirit for me, and the emotion. I'm getting emotional just talking about it. I do. I'm not going to, but I'm. They're right here on the edge.
I know they are. They're right there.
Talking about the album because that's how hard it hit me. So yes, it shook me up, and I'm ready to rate. Here, let me do this. Let me tell you what Dad rated this album at. Dad said, gotta give this a 10 for smooth rhythm, style, and creativity. He said, I feel refreshed when listening to each pleasing track. So Dad gives this album a 10. I'm going to follow in his footsteps. There's no other score that I can give this album but a straight 10.
Shazam.
Yep.
10s for the both of you? Well, then
Yep.
that leaves me to say this. I gave it a 10 also. That's awesome.
I don't know what else to say. I mean, I know that our listeners are listening because it's a Cannonball episode and they've probably heard Cannonball. But again, for an unconnoisseur like me, who was coming into this album not knowing what to expect, and then this turns me around like Jimmy Smith does.
Yep.
This turns me around like Esbjorn Svensson does. This turns me around like Brad Meldau.
Yep.
Okay? I'm going to be a Brad Meldau fan for the rest of my life. I will never stop listening to Brad, and I will never, ever stop listening to Cannonball because of this album. Final thoughts? What are your final thoughts?
I think that as a core collection to anybody's album, this is definitely a must. And I think it's obvious if you start to read in on this album and dig into it. To me, it just hits all the marks of a classic must-have album, period.
I love that. Yeah, we talked about that earlier this week, doing a core collection, yes or no. I would say yes. This,
Oh, yeah.
if you're a vinyl collector, get it on vinyl. If you're a CD collector, get it on CD. If you're going to listen to it on your Apple phone or device or your phone, just do it. Just have the album at your fingertips because it's perfect. It is. This is perfect album. Okay. Anything else left to be said about Cannonball?
Nope.
Okay.
Oh, there's a lot to be said. We could do a whole nother episode on Cannonball, but nope, not on this album.
Let me introduce next week's artist. Can I do that?
Yes, please.
Because I know you want to do it. If you want to do it, I'll let you do it. But I'm looking forward to this. All right, we're turning the page. Well,
here's what I would say. I'll be an angry man of jazz if you don't do this.
Okay. All right. Number 35 in our countdown. Again, we're using the Jazz Wise magazine's top 100 albums that shook the world, and we are counting down. So number 35 on the list, Charles Mingus, The Black Saint and the Sinner Lady. This was from the Impulse label, released on LP and CD. It was recorded in 1963. Now, I will tell you this. Along with our jazz journey, I do a mead journey as well. I'm making mead or homemade wine made from honey. Today, I put together a batch of mead in honor of this album. It's a black malt mead made with 6 pounds of honey and 1 pound of black malt, like you would use in a Guinness beer, the black malt beer.
Yum.
So I named it the Black Saint, and in about 5 months, I'll be able to taste it and tell you how it is.
All right, then.
That's why I wanted to introduce it, just to say, in honor of this album. Now, our scores next week, they're going to be a little, my score, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's going to be a little shy of what I think it should be. So, again, Drew and I did this journey.
Did you fix this one?
I don't want to say I bixed it. I don't want to say I did, but there might be things in our week that happened this week. I don't know. I haven't even looked at my notes yet. Yeah, there's always something.
I got 4 pages of notes in that, so I'm guessing there was a lot going on.
That does not surprise me. That does not surprise me.
I kind of miss my old pad and paper. I was doing everything in this for such a long time, and now I'm converting it over to digital so I can see it while we're talking. And I kind of miss the handwriting element. Black Saint and Sinner Lady, Charles Mingus.
All right, Charles Mingus.
Drop
Hey,
it in your ears.
If you would like to leave us a comment on tonight's episode, please do so. We'd love to hear your feedback on Cannonball, about us. I don't care. And if you leave a comment, I will send you a sticker. And I actually, you know what? Last week we got a comment on our episode, and I gave a sticker away last week.
Fantabulous.
Yes, absolutely.
Good
Absolutely. So thanks for tuning in, and thanks for staying till the end with us. We really appreciate you being here.
Yes.
Tune in next week when we talk about Charles Mingus.
Absolutely. So I'm going to end on this. Is that what you want, Alfred?
What a perfect ending.